She killed all the superheroes. That's right, let's talk about Namora. Hi, I'm Nando, and in this series, I take a character from Marvel Comics, talk about their history, their power set, and their personality, and give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this character is getting introduced into the collectible card game, Marvel Snap, this week. Now we are going to talk about a character who is a little bit tricky, but she's fun, she's worth it. I think it's an interesting character. It's Namora. So first of all, what the video says. So for Marvel Snap, they make these videos where they give little introductions. I'm not calling Ben Brode out or anything. Although Ben Brode, what happened to all the variants? Every card this season drops with 0 variants outside of the Spotlight variant. 1 or 2 would be nice. But anyway, in that video, they called Namora Namor's daughter, and I don't know where they got that from, because there's 2 characters that are called, that are Namora. One is Namor's cousin. She's been in the comics since the olden days. She's a Golden Age hero. She's basically like Namor's cousin, a sidekick for Namor. And then for a while, Namora had a daughter named Namorita, who turned out to be a clone of her. So it's basically the same character. She was on the New Warriors. You hear about her every so often. But besides that, Namora's had daughters, but none that I could think of were named Namora. I always understood this character to be his cousin. Like I said, she's one of Marvel's oldest characters, definitely the oldest character we've done in one of these videos, first appearing in 1947, but we're not talking about the Namora from the 1940s in this video, because this season of Marvel Snap is focusing on a team of comic characters called the Exiles. This is a team that was created around the 2000s, it's had a couple of runs since then, but basically it is this rotating team of Marvel superheroes, traditionally mutants, although not exclusively mutants, but especially in the beginning, it's a lot of mutants. They are plucked from different realities, forced to do tasks set by the Time Broker, a mysterious figure who has control over them for some reason. And then they have to do those tasks and then they go home. It forms this fun rotating roster of characters where you're like, oh, right, I remember that guy from that other book I read. Or kind of what if versions of other characters. Namora is one of those. So she first shows up in Exiles number 46, written by Tony Bedard, with art by Mizuki Sakakibara, JC, and David Sharp. At this point, the team has reached what's kind of an equilibrium. We have what might as well be your main Exiles. It's Blink, it's Nocturne, it's Morph, it's Mimic, and then it's Sasquatch. Sasquatch is on the team at this point. This is right after the Exiles got done with this big fight with the main villain, I would say, of the Exiles, especially this first run. Magic, the version that they were working with, died, so they got a new spot on the team that is filled by Namora. Now, this Namora is just the Namor from her universe. So in her universe, instead of there being a boy Namor, she was born, and she was the first mutant to Atlantis. 8 years pass, another mutant's born. It's Attuma. Attuma kills the king, tries to steal the throne. Namora stops him and becomes the leader of Atlantis. Now, not a whole lot happens with Namora. She hangs out in Atlantis, kind of avoids human history, until Professor Charles Xavier introduces himself. Hey, I'm a mutant. You're a mutant. Isn't that fun? We should be friends. And that was going well until tends to happen to the X-Men. They got in some fights, got the attention of the government, and then the Avengers and the other heroes started hunting down mutants in this version of the universe, the one that Namora is from, which happens to be 2189. So, this is where Namora gets interesting. Because she's mad at all the humans for what they did to the mutants, she goes up to the surface world and wages war against them and kills all of the superhumans. There are no superhumans, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. In her universe, she killed them all, and according to Namora, she's... I wouldn't say, she's kind of like Namor. She doesn't lie. She's very boastful, and she says a lot of things, and you're kind of all right, well, that might not be exactly true, but I don't think she, would fully lie. She says that this led to years of peace. And you know what? Maybe that's true. I don't know. She seems obviously, what I'm describing now seems like she might be a bad guy. And she's kind of an anti-hero, I guess is what you could call it. But this Namora is definitely not a bad guy. The same way that, I don't know, Doctor Doom is a bad guy. She's obviously very extreme, kills a lot of superheroes, but in her defense, the superheroes were hunting mutants, so, what are you gonna do? So after a couple of years, Namora gets taken by the Time Broker, recruited to join the Exiles, which the Time Broker is this very strange, mystical being who might be a figment of everybody's consciousness, who unsticks you from time and puts you on this team where you are forced to serve as an exile for some amount of time known only to the Time Broker, where either you complete that service and then you are sent home, or you die and then you are replaced, which happens a lot, more than you would expect. I don't know what the numbers are on that. I would say maybe 50%, probably more than 50% of the Exiles die instead of getting sent to their home universe. That's gotta be true, because a lot of them get, like, they run through a couple really quick. I mean, I wouldn't say more than like 6 or 7 of them actually do go back to their home universe in this original book, and we definitely lose more than that. And, you know, this is not something any of the heroes signed up for, so they're always really upset when this happens, but Namora is way more upset than usual. Also, she's blue, which, like, usually the blue Atlanteans cannot breathe air, but she is a mutant, and it's just kind of because Namora in the comics at this point is usually blue, and you'll see, like, the one from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is blue, but she works just like Namor does. She has those same powers. She can fly on the wings on her feet. She's super strong, breathe underwater, super powered by the water, all that stuff. My favorite thing about Namora, bar none, is what she does immediately after this. When she gets recruited by the Time Broker, they all kind of explain to her, the exiles, like, hey, you're an exile now, you gotta help us solve mysteries or whatever through time and space. And she's like, no, I'm not. I am going home right now. So she sabotages this mission, and what she does, because she knows, you know, some of the superheroes in a universe, goes to visit the Fantastic Four in the universe they're in, and like, again, one of my favorite things, and this is what I love about comics so much. Remember, this is Namora, but she is pretty much just Namor. She goes and finds Mr. Fantastic and immediately starts putting the moves on him, because if you are a Namor or a Namora, you will find the member of the Fantastic Four, the senior most members of the Fantastic Four, who you are attracted to, and you will zero right in on them. And I love what's so funny about it, because Namor is there for this, and he's also like, this isn't cool, this is bad. But by this point, he's kind of mellowed out. Like, you know, in the beginning of the comic, and I guess he goes through phases, but definitely, like, he's working with the Fantastic Four, so he's friendly at this point. I love that Sue knows, like, oh god, it's a Namor, and she starts getting a little cozy with Reed, and Sue's like, absolutely not, you are not talking to her. And it's just really funny, because she knows, like, that's what happens. So right there, that's the most fun thing she does. She's very confident, she's very strong, she's got that kind of Namor swagger, where she's like, I'm the king, you should listen to me, do whatever you want, I don't know, I'm gonna beat you up later, and then I'm gonna be in charge, I get what I want, because I'm the king. Like that, but queen. She's a pretty short tenure on the team. I want to say she lasts for maybe 15 books, 16 books in total. They go on some missions to stop the Impossible Man and Doctor Doom and stuff like that. But what I love about Namora, she doesn't take nonsense from anybody. When one of the people they recruit goes like, I don't want to do this anymore, I actually have a plan, we can get to the Time Brokers and go kill them ourselves, Namora's like, absolutely, let's go do it. I don't trust them. I've never trusted them. I think it's stupid we have to do this. Now they're clearly messing with us, so let's go do it. And they go, and I really don't want to spoil it, because I really do think this storyline specifically, so it takes place over the course of the first 60 issues. Now, I think you could start reading right around here, maybe a little bit earlier, in the 40s, you'd want to read maybe in the early 40s, late 30s. But once you get to this point, it is a very fun reveal of what's going on, and it leads to a bunch of very fun fights. Not everybody makes it out alive. Don't read too much into this. This is the last time Namor does anything significant. Maybe it's because she survives and gets to go home, or maybe not. You'll never know until you read it, which I would really recommend. So, at power set, she is like Namor. Like, she says this during a couple of fights. She's like, you know, I can like take a punch from the Hulk. I'm very strong. And Namor is traditionally one of the stronger Marvel characters. There's like an regular Earthbound character that's not like powered by the power cosmic. But I think it's easy to forget, especially when Namora is like standing next to some of these other guys like Mimic, who has, you know, Colossus strength. Like, Namora is on another level. She tends to fly a lot of times she can fly. She's also just very tall, so like in a group shot she tends to be in the back. And yeah, she can swim underwater, kind of heal underwater like Namor usually can. There's really not that much to her. One other thing that's interesting, she comes on the team right as Nocturne is leaving. And even when she comes on, Nocturne's on it, and Nocturne's like, hey, you know, we already have a blue woman with pointy ears. Like, I don't think we need 2 of those. It is kind of funny that for a second there's 2, and then immediately the next thing that happens is like, oh, by the way, Nocturne, you're done. You can go home. But, you know, whatever. Maybe they wanted to like use Nocturne in a different book, but they wanted to replace her with a character that looked familiar. That happens in comics all the time. A version of Namor shows up in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and she is a mostly silent henchman to Namor. She seems to be his second in command with Atuma, and according to the wiki, there's no real explanation of this in the movie, she is Namor's cousin too. So it's not even like this is Namor's daughter and you're supposed to be like, oh, that's why they said, I really don't know where they got that from. In Marvel Snap, Namora is currently a 5 cost 6 power, with the on reveal ability give +5 power to each of your cards alone at another location. So obviously this is very clearly a take on the I guess, Atlantean or telekineal or whatever you want to call it, ability that favors cards being by themselves. So like Namor gets extra power if he's by himself. Orca does. Oh yeah, and Tuma. Although Atuma's is a little different because you have to destroy him if there's another card there. But like an ideal Namora play, maybe you have a Namor out on one lane, an Atuma out on another lane, they're both by themselves. Maybe you drop down a Wong, and then you end with the Namora. So those guys both go up by 10 power. Like, that's pretty good. I would say overall this strategy as a mechanic, this being one card by itself, is not traditionally seen in Snap very often. Like, it's definitely not a meta you see all around. But, you know, I think that's okay for a character like her, because I think she's a card that, like, if I had, I'm sure I could figure out what to do with her, but I don't think she's particularly useful. Like, she's not going to be as useful as, say, Sage, who I think even if you're not playing a Sage deck, you could figure out a way to put Sage into your deck and make her, you know, you can get some power out of her, make her, you know, an above average value card. Also, you know, and this isn't like a here's whether you should get her or not get her, but I do think one of the things that is kind of tricky looking at like characters like Sage, who just came up, and then White Widow definitely from last season, there have been a lot of cards that do favor getting a lot of cards on your side of the field, getting a lot of cards on your opponent's side of the field. Junk decks are really in. So I do think that makes the Namora pitch a little bit trickier. I think if you are a big fan of the character, you want an Atlantean deck, maybe you want a fun new thing to try, you've got a lot of Spotlight caches, or you want to open the Scar or Black Knight, both cards that I think are pretty good. I've had some really good luck with Black Knight back in the day. I would say, you know, it's not a terrible card. Out of the 5 cards that are new this season, I would say Namora is probably the least exciting one to me. I do think one thing that's cool, the base art is interesting. The Ryan Kincaid version and the Alberto Delago version, because both of them imagine a version of Namora that does feel very inspired by the version from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, who is played by Mabel Cadena. I mean, this obviously doesn't look very much like the version of Namora from the Exiles, but I don't think she's been drawn with this kind of outfit too recently. This is not something I'm super familiar with. But I do think it's a little weird that in the Exiles season, there is not a Namora variant that looks like her Exiles version. I don't think that's that complicated. It seems like they're doing that with some of the other guys. Obviously, like Blink and Nocturne just do look like their traditional Exiles variants, but like they have the Exiles Beast variant in there. But I just wish there were a couple more variants right off the bat to get you more excited about these guys. So you see this other version of Namora, this blue version of Namora, and you go, who's that? She must be from something. And then you go, oh, from the Exiles. She looks different than in this. Maybe get a little flavor for that. I don't know. That's just me. And I like the variants. It's like maybe my favorite part of the game because it's the most comic booky. It's a way to customize your deck, get a sense for, you know, new artists. I think there's some artists that have become very popular because of Marvel Snap. Obviously, you know, they're great otherwise, but like your Peach Momokos, your Kim Jacintos, even your Dan Hips, like those are names that I think a lot of people know because of Marvel Snap. So I think more variants is always a good thing. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, share this around. I'm going to try, here's my new thing if you're watching this now, either way I guess, but if you're watching this before the card comes out, that's because I'm going to try to get these done a little bit early and then put them onto Nebula a week early. So if you want to see them early, they're going to be there. It's something that I'm going to try. So this one will be up a little early and then I'll kind of get, you know, once I've got it going, then it'll be a lot easier, but I just got to get ahead one or two. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and you will see me soon talk about Sasquatch.